Hello everyone. Hello, good to have us here again today. If this is your first time hopping on my channel, I want to say a big thank you for clicking the link and coming here. Maybe it was the caption that attracted you, or that you saw and said, okay, let me see what this is about. Thank you. I don't think it is coincidental that you are here. So again, my name is Laura Derek Bibe. If this is your first time, I have a lot of videos that I have, well, not a lot, a number of videos that I have done previously before this one. So you may want to start from the very beginning, but it's fine for you to join from here. It is very okay. There's nothing wrong with you starting here. So what I wanted to do today or this week was I'm recording this in October, right? I turned 50 in this month of October, possibly this week that this is playing at the moment, or the first time I release it. It could be, is possibly the week of my birthday. So I just wanted to just take time to just say a big thank you to God for keeping me all those 50 years. I know you may be there and you're thinking, well, I don't believe in this God you're talking about. That's okay, that's fine. But I do believe in him. I believe that he's the one who created us, who has put us here on the earth, and he's the reason why we are alive and well, right? And I'm hoping that some of the things I will share here today, or the things I've shared previously, or the things I will share in the future, will bring you to a place where you begin to ask questions as to, okay, this God that this lady is speaking about, is he really there? How do I connect with him? And I mentioned some of the ways that you can, in my videos. And but yeah, this is really for you if you're that person. But like I said, I turned 50. As I'm turning 50, I can't help but think about two different occasions when honestly I should have been dead. Yeah, medically speaking, I should have been dead. I shouldn't be here. But I acknowledge that it is God, this God that I speak about, that has kept me and preserved me 50 years, right? 50 years. That is yeah, nothing to take lightly, nothing to take for granted. I would have loved to share on those two different occasions, but I know that I have said in my previous videos that I was going to focus on some of the jobs that I have come into miraculously, right? Things that jobs that I have engaged in, and just thinking about it, I know that the things that either happened on the job or how I came into the job were not coincidental. It could only have been the hand of God. It could only have been a sovereign being out there working things out, a sovereign being that I have submitted to and surrendered to. The one who says he's the creator of all things, the one who says he has created everything that we see and do not even yet see, right? Because I have surrendered to him, I see that he's the one working these things out. It is not chance, it is not luck, it is not coincidence. I don't believe in all of that, because I know that there is a sovereign God who is in control of everything on the earth. The Bible says the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and all the peoples that dwell in it. I believe that is in Psalm 14 from verse 1. The earth is the Lord's. Everything is under his control. So I know that because I have surrendered my life to him, nothing happens to me by chance, because he's in control of my entire life. He's in total control. So my last video I shared about how I was going to serve as a copper. Please watch the video so that it makes sense, right? I was going to serve as a copper, and I finally landed the job in the organization I wanted to be in, even though typically I was not supposed to make that decision, right? Yeah, in fact, it didn't look like it was not going to happen. But because I'm surrendered to this God, and he gave me certain instructions, and I follow those instructions, and I find that I end up with a bank that I wanted to serve in. So I get into this job as a copper. So what that means is, a copper is just someone who is serving the nation. This was the country of Nigeria. I was serving the country through this bank, right? And they will give me a stipend for doing that. And then this bank, you know, was good enough to also pay me besides what the government was going to give me. So I was supposed to do this for 1 year, and in those days, you know, the hope was that after the 1 year, if you did a good job, you know, in that 1 year, the organization you serve with could retain you as a permanent staff, right? So that was what I was hoping for. And then I started doing this job, and I must tell you that, you know, on that job, it wasn't a very easy job to do. And not the job itself, so to speak. It was just the environment. It just happened to be somewhat toxic, like we say these days. It seemed like a toxic environment, right? So somebody's saying, but I thought you said God gave you the job, so how could it have been toxic? Anyway, for me at that time, when things were happening with people around me, I knew to take it to God. Because again, remember that scripture that I quoted that said, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. All the people that dwell in it, they're all his. So I knew to go back to him and say, see these people that you have created. Why are they doing this with me or to me? I was like the youngest person not youngest in age, but you know, the lowest level in the organization, in that particular branch of that bank. But there were people who, you know, were being antagonistic, obnoxious. And maybe it was because I would, you know, unapologetically proclaim that I was a Christian that loved the Lord. I always talked about, you know, having to go to different meetings after work. In fact, I went to a meeting every day of the week. Yes, after work, a prayer meeting. And all my colleagues, at least people I worked with, they knew. And I know that sometimes when I say this, they just scoff and, you know, look at me funny, like, are you okay? Why are you making this thing seem like it's such a big deal? For me, it was a big deal, right? So I faced a lot of persecution on that job. That's how the Bible puts it. It was really tough. It was a really tough time for me. I lie not. But I came to realize, because I would constantly take all the situations to God in prayer, I came to realize that God was teaching me things on that job. He was teaching me to love people who are unlovable. He was teaching me to remain in joy even when things around me did not necessarily bring me happiness, right? He was helping me to understand that my joy is in him, not the things that happen around me. And I was learning all these things, learning humility, learning to push pride away, learning to, you know, not necessarily want to be contentious, right? Because I could have been all these things on that job. Some of the people who were being obnoxious, yes, they were higher than me on the job, but they were younger than me in age. So I could have, you know, wielded that as a weapon, like, hello, I'm much older than you, so where do you come off, you know, doing the things you're doing or saying the things you're saying to me? Now, I know that, you know, some people may listen to this and it may sound to you like, oh, I was submitting myself to be like a doormat or something. No, that was not it at all, right? But I had seen from the Bible, even Jesus faced worse things that I did. Jesus is he is God. Jesus is God, right? The very people he created did worse things to him, and he didn't flinch. He could have, at the snap of a finger, he could have snuffed out their lives, but he didn't do that, right? And the Bible helps us to know that when you come to God, one of the major expectations is that he's working in you to be like Jesus, to be that person who loves the unlovable, right? Who who trust God to fight their battles. And that is what I chose to do. And I remember one of the very first things that happened on that job, in fact, because like I said, I would go for meetings every day after work. I would close at 5 p.m. and I would, travel about 30 to 45 minutes. No, let me say about 45 minutes to 1 hour, depending on how traffic was, on public transport to get to my prayer meetings, right? And one day I was just in the public transport and I just, thought in my head, I was like, oh God, it would be great if I had a car, so that I could go to these meetings, instead of getting on public transport and after a long day at work and all of that. And honestly, I just said that in my head to God, because I do that a lot. I'm talking to God in my heart, right? Besides the time that I, pray verbally. And I just say that in my spirit to God. And believe it or not, the very next week, I got funds to get a car. So this was me. I was a copper. I hadn't started a proper job. I was the lowest of the lowest person in my organization. And then I show up the next week I show up this particular week with a car that I'm saying is my own car. And people who have been there years before me have not, are not able to buy themselves a car just yet. How did I get that money? An inheritance came my way. So don't think, it was anything fraudulent or anything, dodgy. No. I came into an inheritance, and I used part of the inheritance. I didn't see it coming, but it happened the very next week. So I used part of that money and I got myself a car, right? Anyway, I'm on that job, and then towards the end of the service year, I get switched to another role. I get switched to a different role. And then I think I'm on this role for less than 3 months, or maybe about 2 months or so. And I have to get appraised to determine whether I remain in the company or not. Now, while I was dealing with all of when I was trying to get into that company, I had submitted my resume to other organizations, right? And in the course of the time that I was waiting to finally come into this company, I got to do a test, an assessment with one of those organizations, one other organization. And when I did it, it was also a bank, but it was should I say a bigger bank than this bank I was in. When I did the assessment, they had said to me that I had not even started serving, which was the service year I spoke about, that I had not even started serving, that when I was done with service, I should come back. Now, I can't really remember if I did that during my service year with this bank or before I got into this bank, but I know that what the bank said to me was that I wasn't done serving. So when I was done serving, I should get back to them, right? So I was in this organization. I get moved to another role 2 months before service is over. And when I get appraised for this new role, I don't do very well because I had just been in the role for 2 or 3 months. Meanwhile, my appraisal was supposed to be for the entire year. So they were appraising me for a full year's job on a 2 month role, if that makes sense. So basically, they said to me that I had to go on a probation. I think it was a 3 months probation. Meanwhile, everyone else who had come into that organization as a copper, just like me, who were my friends, had gotten moved on. So when we came into the organization, we had trainings together, but we all got sent to different branches, right? But we all were on a chat group together, nothing like WhatsApp now, but we're all on a chat group. I think a chat group in the company, like Teams or something like that, right? So on this day, all of my colleagues were all posting, oh, I have been, made a permanent staff. I have been made a permanent staff. I was the only one out of maybe close to 10 or 12 of us who did not, who was not made a permanent staff. And honestly, that got me so depressed, got me so sad. It was a tough time in my life. I didn't understand it. And I would take this to God. I would like, God, what is this? Right? And then I remember one of my friends from those groups reached out to me and he said to me that, I thought you did this assessment with this other bank. Why don't you reach out to them and tell them that, this is what that you're waiting to hear back from them. So because they had said to me that when I was done with the service year, I should reach out to them. When I completed my service year, I did reach out to them. I did send them, I think, an email to say, I was done. But I never heard back from them. And then my friend said, oh, you need to go there. You need to, let them, tell them about it. And I was thinking to myself, in fact, what I thought to myself, I probably even said it to him. I said, you know what? If God cannot go to that organization and bring out my file before the person that needs to see it, then maybe that job is not for me. Right? So I wasn't one to force things. Like if you was from my previous video, I mentioned the same thing, how I wasn't one to force things, right? I was one to rely on God to lead me and to help me know what to do. Anyway, so I am serving my probation. One day I come to the office, I'm happy, I'm smiling because, again, these were the things God was teaching me on that for that 1+ years, right? In spite of my situation, I wouldn't come, looking depressed, even though I was sort of feeling it. But, I had come to a point where I had shaken it off. Thank God for his word, because that was what was just pulling me through, right? I would sit with the word of God and, just get my strength from there, my joy from there, my peace from, just communing with God. Anyway, I'm trying to keep this video under 20 minutes. One day I come to the office, I'm smiling, I'm happy, I'm joyful. And one of my colleagues actually obnoxiously says to me, why are you so happy? Like, you don't have a reason to be happy. I said, well, I'm happy. I'm just a happy child, right? That's what I said. A senior colleague who had been there maybe God knows how many years before me, just picking on this child that had come to work in this company. Anyway, less than 2-3 hours later, I am told that somebody wants to see me downstairs. So I go downstairs and I see someone who I had given my resume to, who worked in that other bank, the better bank, quote unquote. I had given him my resume when I was trying to get in as a copper, right? And he submitted my resume for me through, HR, because I didn't know anyone I knew him through somebody else who just, connected me to him. So I go downstairs and I see him. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh, maybe he wants to come and open an account with my own bank to stash his money away or something. So when I go to him, I'm saying hello to him. He now says, wow, that he got a call from HR, that a lady called him from HR of his company, and they were saying to him that I am looking at somebody's resume here. In those days, we used to put our passport photographs on our resume, right? So she said, I'm looking at this person's face and I've been trying so hard to find her. I have tried to call the number on her resume. I've sent somebody to where she lives and I can't seem to find her. But because I can see that your name is on her resume, you were the one that submitted it, I need you to help me find her. And I'm looking at him and wondering what he's talking about. And he says, so yes, that you have an interview. I think it was the next day, or either that was a Friday, and he said I had an interview on, yes, he said it was a Friday. He said that I had an interview. I had to come for a final interview with it was supposed to be the CEO, but the CEO was out of town. The MD was out of town. So I was going to meet the assistant, MD, or, it was right next to the MD anyway. And I'm in shock. Anyway, I go to church on Sunday and my pastor is preaching and he's talking about all these things that really resonates with what I had been dealing with in that organization. Everything he was saying, how, people can be obnoxious to you and antagonistic. And, he was just talking about how, honestly, throughout that service, I was on my feet, because it was like if he had sat with me the nights before and I had poured out my heart to him, and he came back Sunday morning and he was using my story to preach, right? Sorry, that guy came to my office on a Thursday and I had the interview on a Friday. So Friday morning, I had called my office and said to them that, my mom called them because I had gone for my interview, and said to them that I am indisposed. I had said to her, please don't tell them I am sick, because I am not sick. Just tell them that, I'm not available, I'm indisposed for that day. I'll be back to work on Monday. I'm sorry this is over 20 minutes, but I'll try and, wrap up quickly. Anyway, so I did the interview on Friday. I'm in church on Sunday, and then my pastor is, saying all of these things. And I'm just looking at him like, how can you know all these things? It's me you are talking about, right? Now, after I finished the interview on Friday, I had been told that I needed to send in some more documents by Monday morning. Now, in those days, we didn't use emails. This is about over 20 years. This was 2020. This was 2003, right? 2003, I believe. Yeah, or 2002 into 2003. So we didn't use emails the way we do now. So they expected me to bring the documents on Monday. I knew I had to be at work on Monday. So I had asked my older brother if he could help me take it in, because he would normally go in that, or maybe he was on his own at that time, but he was able to help me take it. He said he would take it in to the organization on Monday. So he was supposed to take some extra documents in for me on Monday. Anyway, I'm in church on Sunday, and my pastor is preaching about me, as far as I'm concerned, because I don't know how it was me he was talking to. I was on my feet throughout that service, so that my departmental head in church came to me after service and said, Laura, is everything okay? I saw you through service. Is all well? I said, yes, all is well. At some point during that service, my pastor stands at the edge of the altar and he says, somebody here, you are at the edge of your breakthrough. And he prophesied and said that within 24 hours, you are going to come into what God has for you. So I looked at my time, and it was about 11 a.m. that day. And something said in my head, well, you are supposed to take your documents to them by 12 noon. That was when they asked you to bring the documents. But for some reason, I just held on to that word, because I believed it was the word of God for me. And I said, I believe this. And I held on to it. But I still sent my documents through my brother to help me take it there the next day. So I go into work the next morning. In those days, we'll get to work for about 7:30. I was at work before 8 o'clock. About 7:40, 7:45, my phone rings, and I see that it's a strange number. So I was talking to my supervisor, but I left and I went, I just needed some privacy, and I took the call. And it was a call from that bank. And they were saying, oh, we've been trying to call you. Your phone has been switched off. I said, no, my phone has not been switched off. I said, well, come and take your employment letter. Your employment letter is ready. You should come and pick it up. And I'm like, how? I thought I was supposed to bring more documents. Anyway, that is how I got that job. And you see, even though I was on probation on this new job, by the time I picked up my employment letter the next day, what I was going to be paid was nothing like, or rather what my colleagues that, had been moved on like 2 months before me. I think you know what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say was that the way God compensated me, it was unbelievable. If I had been a permanent staff 2 months before and continued to be a permanent staff, I would not have earned what this bank was offering me. Is somebody out there thinking it's coincidental? Sorry, I don't think so. It was not coincidental. That was God at work in this girl's life. And I have more testimonies like this, even about jobs, because yes, I moved on from that job, and I will share that in my next in my next video. Please, I need you to believe that there is a God, again, who cares about you, who loves you, who wants to connect with you. My video is already over 25 minutes. I'm going to stop here. The way to connect with me you will find in the description if you want, you know, us to just sit down and talk about this God some more. Please reach out, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. God bless you. Take care.